listening to people's language or listening to your own language, another super important part of awareness and the key to being proactive is listening to your own language. So I'm pretty famous for saying, and my kids would, would would attest to this because I've been doing it with them their whole life, which is if you listen to somebody's language, like what is coming out of their mouth has already been in their head like 100 times, right? You've had the thoughts. And so, and I was pretty famous for this even in my career with my direct reports and stuff when they would say things, and I would catch like brand new people, even in like if I was in an onboarding conversation with a brand new team member, and then they would say things like you, and they meant the company. Like when they were saying like, how do you do it here? And it's like, well, we don't like, if there's not a you, like you're now we, right? Like you're a part of the group. So let me tell you how we do it, right? And so language is a super important and powerful key. So if we can listen to, first of all, like the voice in our head, right? If you're listening to those thoughts, right? Because we've already talked about the thought, like our thoughts don't have to make us, we can challenge that. And that's how you were doing it, like when you used your example before. But I like to use this with other people, whether it be my own children, right? Because you can't hear the voice inside of their head. You can only hear the one that comes out of their mouth. But then once they said, like, I'm also really famous with my kids for when they would use the word can't, right? I'm like, can't? Like, what's that mean? Like, I can't remember who, it was probably like somebody like, who's the chicken soup for the soul guy? Somebody like that. Jack Canfield, right?
Jack Canfield, yeah.
Jack Canfield said, like, go in the dictionary and turn to the word can't and cut it out of the dictionary and throw the word away. And that was also like a powerful word image to me as well. So just by picking up on people's language, your kids, coworkers, your spouse, you can use that language that they're using to, hopefully challenge in a productive and useful way. And so anyway, I guess I didn't hit on purpose at all there, but maybe we can just talk about language for a minute if you have any points, and then we could talk about purpose.
Let's talk about language. Yeah, this is something that I had always heard about since I was little. Like even my parents, like were very kind of strict about what kind of language we used. Not only could we not say bad words, but we couldn't say the word stupid or sucks. My mom hated that word, sucks. If I said something sucks, it was gonna suck for me. But I always saw it kind of like as a punishment, or like in a way, the fact that I couldn't say these words was a negative, and it kind of defeated the purpose. I had to grow up and realize that it's not about that. What it is exactly what you said. If I'm saying it out loud, that means that's bumping around in my head. I like how you put that because I picture it bumping around in my head. And if it's bumping around in my head, who is it affecting most? Who am I really talking to? Even if I'm talking about someone else, I'm talking to myself. And, I tell my kids this all the time. Like when my kids have something bad happen, like internet lag or something, a video is not loading, and they start complaining, they're like, oh, whatever, outburst. I go, do you really think I want to hear that? Like, I understand you're frustrated and you can let your frustration out. But if you're now affecting the whole room with this negative outburst, like that's not fair for everybody in this room, because there's like 5 of us here. And just because your video won't load, now we all have to hear you yell. And I think that is the same thing with our heads. If that thought is there, it's not fair to all the other thoughts that are more important and that have to take up room. So yeah, like what you said really resonates, and is something that I believe in wholeheartedly.
Phenomenal. Well, let's talk about purpose. Where do you want to go?
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, and just in general, talking about purpose, I think about setting intentions. And, it is in line with be proactive, but I want to take it even a step further. I believe that we are all living the life we intended to live, whether it was consciously or unconsciously. we created this world that we're in, whether, when I was 100 pounds heavier, that's because that is the world I intended to live in. And it had everything to do with the level of activity that I wanted to have. I didn't want to be active. The number of hours I wanted to spend playing video games, the amount of snacks that I wanted, all of that created my world. And it's so powerful when you set an intention to say, you know what, I wanted to have a Bruce Lee body. Now, I don't know if I'm there yet, but I remember clearly I was like 100 pounds heavier than I am now. And I was talking to my kids about Bruce Lee, and they're like, who's Bruce Lee? I'm like, what? You don't know who Bruce Lee is? So I had to like show them Bruce Lee. And then I said, you know what, that is, if I want to have an ideal body, I want that Bruce Lee body. And that intention really kind of what was the starting point to my weight loss, to be honest. Like, I think once I set that intention, anything that I did that was outside of taking me towards that goal, I thought twice or three times. Like, it doesn't mean I didn't struggle with the temptations, but I'd set my intention and I got there. So yeah, I think acting with purpose is all about setting intention. What do you think?
Oh, you used the perfect word, and there was no way we were going to be able to leave the topic of purpose without using the big I word, right? And intentional was the word that I use all the time, and that is essentially what our purpose is for: is to create that vision for the future, right? And again, my purpose tells me as much. I tell people this, CEOs all the time. My purpose tells me as much about what I'm not going to do as it does what I'm going to do, right? Because just like you, I've been on that fitness roller coaster, and I've almost crashed the bus, right, of my own personal fitness. And now I've learned that that's not an effective strategy, right? So that's why purpose, you used it in terms of, you intentionally wanted, to be there. And that's a hard thing for people. That goes all the way now back to that, taking personal responsibility thing, right? Because when you and me were both on that spiral downward, right, we were not taking responsibility for the other parts of our life that were suffering. We either didn't want to see it, or we didn't want to recognize it, or we had our sights set on the wrong thing in our purpose. Whether, in my case, it was alcohol. In your case, it was, video games and unhealthy food. Pick your poison, right? So having a powerful purpose is the key to intention. And then having the intention is the key to what we're talking about right now, being proactive. So they're all, we use that term before on our pre-show about circular reference, right? They're all like interconnected, or actually what Stephen Covey calls throughout the book, right? He talks about independence, and then he talks about interdependence and the power of what interdependence means: the power of individuals, the power of your thoughts, the power of your actions, the power of teams. How when you create, essentially the theme of the book is creating interdependence. That's when you go to a transcendent level.